Okay, if you want me to do the gym teacher, I can do the gym teacher. I've done both. But anyway, to make everything fair, the three candidates will each draw a straw. Short straw goes first, middle, next straw will go second, and the longest straw will go last. For the alderman, we're going to do a coin toss. You guys are easier. And candidates will have 5 minutes to give their platform. It's very important, as Neighborhood Watch representative, that the citizens in this area are given the opportunity to meet the candidates on a fair playing field. Gentlemen, when you see and ladies, when you see the yellow, you're at the 60-minute warning.
60 minutes?
60
Wow.
seconds. You gotta understand, I went to school with Mark. I know how long he can talk.
I'm leaving now.
Now, when you see the red, it's 30 seconds. So, I'm going to draw straws, and then each candidate will have 5 minutes to give their platform. After that, we'll open up for question and answers. Each candidate will be able to give their answer to that person's question. Please phrase your questions in the form of a question. Do not, we're not here to give them a lashing of the tongue. We're here to ask them questions. This is your opportunity to actually meet and talk with candidates. If you have an issue afterwards, I'm sure these gentlemen will be more than happy to discuss that with you one-on-one. Okay. I'm going to start here because I'm getting old and I got to... Okay, Phil will go first, Joe will go second, and the mayor will go third. You can keep those as a moment. We do things right here.
Folks get to ask questions too, right?
Yeah,
You want to go over that with them? Or
yes. And like I said, you'll have a chance after you heard their platform to ask questions. And each one of your questions will be answered by all three candidates as well as the alderman after they get their platforms and their vision for this area. Okay. Hey, Phil, start timing.
Phil. Good evening. I'd like to thank the Pleasant Hill Neighborhood Watch Association for putting this together and the church making the space available. These are, we already have one in Douglas, as you may know. And March 26th, we have an even bigger venue at Lindenwood. So I think it'd be great to have you all out there for that one as well. So let me start off. My name is Phil Elmore. I am currently the 7th Ward Alderman. I was elected in 2009. I live at 1106 East Main in Belleville. I am married to my wife Barb, who's here this evening. She is a teacher at Scott Elementary on base. And I have 3 children who I happen to think are wonderful. And a 26-year-old who's graduated at SIUE and works at the Bank of Edwardsville. And then 13-year-old twins that go to Central Junior High. In 2009, I was elected alderman by the people of the 7th Ward as an independent alderman. I ran one of 2 people that were elected independent aldermen during that election. Okay, what is an independent? Maybe you're asking. Well, to me, it means that I have no preconceived notions of a party slate or any agendas that were set before me ahead of time. I truly look at every issue on its merit, and I've tried to hold true to that as much as possible. I do not feel like we have to agree all the time. We don't. I do not agree all the time with the mayor, or sometimes I don't agree all the time with Joe Hayden. That is the basis of what I believe our government is founded on, is having freedom of opinion. And I really appreciate the opportunity that the people of the 7th Ward have given me to be their alderman. Personally, I've been an insurance agent for 27 years at the Harnest Insurance Agency in downtown Belleville. So I have been able to live, work, and even go to church in my 7th Ward, and I really enjoyed that as well. I've been a member of the Belleville JCs for years. The Belleville JCs taught me that service to humanity is the best work of life, as part of our motto in Belleville JCs. I'm also a member of the Downtown Belleville Optimist Club, where we think only of the best, work only for the best, and expect only the best. And I try to live by those words with a positive attitude and uplifting neighborhoods and whatever issue is, whatever is best for Belleville. We do have to make tough decisions, as you all know. Many of you have been at City Hall or City Council meetings, and sometimes they are unpopular decisions. And I appreciate that. If they're unpopular with you, there's a good chance they're unpopular with us. I didn't like the wheel sticker, but we had to do it at that time. I also was ecstatic that we were able to get rid of the wheel sticker. So, you know, it's not based on one issue. You have to look at the big picture. And I really appreciate, you know, the opportunity to have been the 7th Ward Alderman. It's been a great experience. We have a dog park that we're getting started. I started working on it right away when I was elected, and it's finally going to come to fruition. We've had stumbling blocks. But again, positivity for Belleville. Belleville, the size of Belleville, should have a dog park, and we have not had one in years. And so I was thrilled to be able to get that started for the city of Belleville. Before I was an alderman, we're going to talk a lot, I'm sure, tonight about crime, having more police officers. I have ideas, plans that will get Belleville more police officers, and that is very much my #1 priority. I experienced firsthand the need for police officers before I was ever an alderman. I ran an event, created an event called the Tour de Belleville, and I knew we were stressed out to the max for properly securing all these volunteers. Of course, it's easy to look at crime and say, if we had more police officers, we wouldn't have any more crime. Well, we're not going to be able to do away with crime, but we can do a lot to deter it. And if we just throw up our hands and say we don't have the money, then we have to continue to think outside the box. But I am all about bringing ideas, teamwork, working together so that we can build a better Belleville. I'm very excited to be here tonight, and I look forward to your questions. And if you have anything else that I can answer for you, I'll be happy to talk to you afterwards. Alderman Hart is running for treasurer, and he has a brochure for you to take on your way home this evening. Thank you. I'm looking forward to your vote on April 9th. You're a candidate. I appreciate your vote. I'm a candidate for mayor.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Hayden. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Belleville. Served as alderman from 93 to 97, and in the midst of second term as alderman, and I was elected in 2011. The reason I'm running for mayor is quite simple. The #1 issue in the city of Belleville, in my opinion, is crime. I ran in 93 because of crime. Again, 2011. 93 when I ran in crime, from 93 to 95, I chaired the Police and Fire Committee, and we put 16 police officers on the street. We reduced crime in all aspects. We did that, ladies and gentlemen, while lowering property taxes in the city of Belleville 4 years in a row. I was defeated in 97 by Mr. Eckert. Served as my alderman, and eventually became mayor in 2000, late 2004, 2005. As we got into close to 2009, people kept talking to me about getting back involved. And their #1 concern that they brought to me was crime. I decided to run on that major platform in 2011, and I won 505 to 310. we do not change what we're doing in the city of Belleville, people, and this is my opinion only, will continue to move out of the city of Belleville, and that is what is happening right now. Property taxes are going lower, and we see for sale signs. I have put together many platform statements on how we can change that. One of the ways is I think we need to go back to budget workshops. Under my understanding is from Mayor Nichols to Brower to Roger Cook, at least the 4 years I was there, and this was something that we had inherited, we had budget workshops, ladies and gentlemen. We sat down with the finance committee, sat down with department heads, those that were there at the time should recall that, and went through the budgets, pretty much line by line, to really justify the needs. We don't do that anymore. We need to bring that back. Another thing that's related to crime, and how can we put more police officers on the street? We're going to have to, ladies and gentlemen, reform the tax increment financing systems in the city of Belleville. And I brought some flyers that I'll be more than glad to share with people this evening. But the city of Belleville has the most TIFs in any city in the state of Illinois, other than Chicago. Now, there's some good things about tax increment financing districts, but there's also some bad things about it. We need to understand and be very clear to talk about it. Every time you create a TIF, you're eroding the tax base of the general tax that can be taxed for the city of Belleville. And in the city of Belleville, the general fund property tax only takes care of the pension programs within the city of Belleville, police, fire, IRF, related. As that tax base continues to erode with the TIFs, eventually, as pensions continue to rise, ladies and gentlemen, we're not even going to be able to afford pensions for the police and fire and essential services without a major tax increase. At the same time, the number one issue is crime. It was verified by the B&D in a news story a couple Sundays ago. And in my mind, ladies and gentlemen, the only way we can do that is we're going to have to start looking at these TIFs. What are they really functionally doing? And start looking at ways that we can eliminate some of these TIFs so we can start bringing back our property tax base in order to levy to put police on the streets. And that is two of the main focuses of my platform. Housing, open government, transparency are other planks that are involved with our platform. Fairness in dealing with the citizens and the unions. And I'll be more than glad as we get into this to answer further questions. Thank
you. Good evening.
Evening.
So I'm the last one left, so I guess you figured out by now I'm Mark Eckert. And I have the privilege to serve as mayor since December of 2004. And as Joe indicated, excuse my voice, I've kind of lost it today, was elected alderman in 1997 for 2 terms in Ward 5, which is just south of here, the Henry Robb Roosevelt Union School neighborhood. Lived here in Belleville all my life, 57 years old. Went to Henry Robb Grade School, Central Junior High, Belleville West, Belleville Area College, Southwestern Illinois Law Enforcement Academy, where I was a police officer for a short time in St. Clair County Sheriff's Department in 1978 for about a year, a little over a year. And worked 15 years driving the ambulance for Peak Air Funeral Home and paramedic ambulance service from 73 to 88. With my good friend Whitby and Dennis here, who also drove the ambulance. My wife and I, Rita, have been married 27 years in April, another month. We have 4 wonderful children. My oldest son, proud to say, is currently serving in Afghanistan as a trauma surgeon in the United States Army. He should be home end of April. I got a daughter. We have a daughter who's in Germany right now on a Fulbright scholarship teaching English to German students. And we have a son who's a union carpenter who lives at home. And we have a daughter who's a freshman at Belleville West. So we have a pretty good span, great kids, And I tell you that because for those of you who have families, I understand. I understand what the economy the last few years has been when you're trying to put kids through college and you're trying to feed them because they're always hungry. And I understand having a business, a small business. My wife and I own Eckerd Florist. For 12 years, it was right around the corner here at 14th and Main. Now we're uptown at 2nd Main. And small business has been hit hard in the last couple of years with this recession. As mayor, I'm proud of what we've been able to do the last 8 years. It's been a tough number of years financially, but we've still grown this city. Look at our downtown. Downtown has totally evolved in the last several years with a new streetscape, filled buildings, new restaurants, new nightlife, festivals. The art show is first in the nation 4 out of the last 6 years. The people it brings in, the revenues it brings in. 2011, we earned the All-America City Award. We're proud of that. That's because of all of you here. Volunteers throughout the city, the churches, the schools, the volunteer organizations, they all brought that All-America City Award to Belleville, and it's outstanding recognition. We're soon to be 200 years old. Our partnership with Scott Air Force Base is essential, and when you serve as mayor, you are the lead person that builds relationships, not only with developers, but with Scott Air Force Base, with our hospitals, with the businesses, with our educational facilities. I'm proud of what we've done in partnership with Lindenwood University. The growth of Lindenwood University is a complete explosion of excitement and property building and property values increasing in this central core just a few blocks from here. And that's taken a lot of teamwork and a lot of partnerships from the city, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished and where we're going with that. The State Police Crime Lab, they're back working, thank goodness. $39 million facility. It's going to be right down the street here at 23rd and Main. 2 new shopping centers in the last 8 years. We've saved our last 3 car dealerships from going to the interstate. And when they're all up and running at their best, which this next year I believe they will be, the city of Belleville gains between $1 million and $1.2 million each year in sales tax from those car dealerships. Ladies and gentlemen, that pays for a lot of policemen and firemen salaries. The new Walmart store and Lowe's, we get $1.3 million a year in sales tax right now, even while we're paying them back the development agreement that we agreed to. That's money we wouldn't have had if they would have moved down the street to Shiloh. I'm proud of the record we have. There's been a lot accomplished, but there's a lot to do. We've done over $50 million of infrastructure work in the last 8 years. That's roads, sidewalks, curbs, bridges, wastewater treatment plant. I'm proud of our team. I'm proud of our elected officials. I agree crime is always an issue. I'm sure we'll talk about it more. But I will tell you, I'm proud of my appointment of Chief Clay and Jim Sparger as the lead officers on the police department. We have put more officers back on the street, closing that West End police station, and we have hired 1 officer since I've been mayor. I did?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening.
At this point in time, after you've heard the platforms from the 3 candidates, if you're ready to start the question and answers, please raise your hand. We will go with the Pleasant Hill residents first, and then if time allows, then we'll open it up to other people. Just, John.
Hey, I live right here, and I do think Belleville has made a change for the better, but Mayor Eckerd, it was kind of crazy today that I saw the trucks coming down, and they finally, in 3 years, laid a little coal patch in and did work on this street. I think you're very well supported in this neighborhood, and you can see it from the signs, but what happens is I don't see anything done much here, and I would just throw that at you. It's a point. We are supportive of what the Belleville is doing, and we do know that you were right up the street. But if you look at our street on a Google map, we are one of the Google Plus, if you look at it, we almost look like Bosnia. So I would just say that.
John, could you answer the question, please?
Oh, my question is, I forgot what I was saying. My question is, I do think Belleville's going in the right direction. And I would almost want to say that IMRF has nothing to do with what this man said, because IMRF has nothing to do with what we're paying taxes for. My question is, could you do a little more here besides having the people come out? Could you, Mr. Mayor? Besides, and I love all the cards I get every Christmas, and I've had them for 15 years. Could you really work on our streets? And I'm not just talking about right out front here, these streets right around here. This is your base. This is your street. Could you do more, Mr. Mayor?
Question to the mayoral candidates are, what can you do for this core area in the way of streets?
In order?
Yes, in order,
In the same order?
in the same order.
Okay. Okay. If I understand the question correctly, what will we do in this core area? Okay. If we have a street issue, we are probably going to, first off, what we seem to do a lot is look at TIF. And if an area is in a TIF area, of course, streets can be, that money can be used from TIF. Now, the streets have to be prioritized. I've had people come to me saying, my alley is terrible. And they're right, it is terrible. Honestly, I'm going to be very honest with you, they do have to be prioritized, okay? Now, I will certainly look at TIF as a revenue source for street repair. Street repair, sidewalk, curb repair will get priority on TIF funds when I'm elected mayor. It won't be to give TIF funds to a grocer that made $90 billion last year. It will be for streets and for infrastructure first. A lot of things you can't spend TIF money on, but streets is something you can, if applicable, depending on the area.
Well, yeah, I drove this area the other day. It needs improvement. You're absolutely right, sir. And as Phil said, tax increment financing districts, which not all TIFs are bad. We need to go back to what the original TIFs were created for, and that is to fix, distress and blight within our areas. These streets need to be fixed. They should be high on the priority. Yet I contend that we have, planned and prioritized our money in the wrong areas. We bought a furniture store for $159,000 on the end of the city limits. We gave $200,000 to the largest grocery store chain in the world. That money should have been used to fix the roads and streets, not only in this area, but we got in other areas. And we need to start improving the roads and streets, which will increase the value of the home. We want people to continue to see the value and investment in the city of Belleville, and that's where we need to do it. I would not be surprised if this area would fit into some of the CDBG funds with the location, and we need to look at all funding sources. But using TIF as the right avenue to fix blight is one of my goals. Thank you.
Well, sir, I couldn't agree with you more. And I will be honest with you. You could verify this with the city engineer and talk to Dr. Tinge about a year ago or so. Right around Christ Church here will get redone, if not this year in the asphalt patch program, next year at the latest. If you remember, we had a plan here. We took down some derelict houses. We worked with Christ Church and made a deal with them. If they helped us in some of the landscaping and cutting the grass, etc., After a year of them proving that they did that, we deeded the property over to Christ Church. We've been working on this area. We worked hard to keep St. Paul's home here, and they're in the process now of going to build a $31 million new facility just down the street. We worked on the old trailer court over here at 9th and C, and we took care of that blightedness, and we tore down those properties, removed those trailers, tore down a vacant derelict building. We got a grant. 6th to 17th Street, we're going to be doing a streetscape. The engineering will be done this year. We will have neighborhood meetings to talk about what that's going to mean. We are in the process right now, it's in the works, to turn this area into a National Historic District, as the title of it technically would be the Brewery District, and we're going to work on trying to re-encourage new ownership. I've met with some developers. We've met with some people to try to talk about the plans to how we could maybe really rebuild this area. I agree the streets around here. I will disagree with you on one thing. I have asked, but I don't even have to ask anymore. Chuck Schaefer and Mike Parks do a great job in the street department, and they patch those potholes on their own whenever they get a call or whenever they're driving around and see them. I will tell you, after these recent snow and ice a week or so ago, there's potholes everywhere, because every time you run that blade on the street, you pop out the old asphalt, and potholes they erupt everywhere. So please call us. But we will get the potholes. We are working on a long-term plan here to put in new curbs and overlay the street and hopefully some sidewalk. It is in the works. I would say this year or next, we're going to be successful in getting around 13th Street A and right around the church here on 14th. It's important. Church, neighborhood, and school, if you look at what we've been doing, over by Joe's house, we've done 11th Street. We did 10th Street, which was terrible. It was worse than this. We've done Cleveland Avenue. We've done State Street. We've done streets out by Abraham Lincoln. We did out by Jefferson School, where the kids were standing in water at the bus stop. We have tried to focus around school neighborhoods and church neighborhoods, and unfortunately we got more miles of street than we got dollars to go around. TIF is working, and I will disagree with Mr. Hayden respectfully. Getting rid of TIFs is not going to put more policemen on the street, because you can't use TIF money to hire police officers. It's not legal. Now, and when TIFs go away, TIF's buying a lot of our police cars. TIF's buying a lot of our new fire truck that we got delivered, and it's going to service this week. $644,000. TIF isn't the animal it's made out to be. If you don't understand it and people tell you how bad it is, it can scare you. But I can tell you, when TIF 3 goes away, our two school districts, 118 and 201, will each lose $2.5 million a year. They're not excited about TIF 3 going away. It's going to end up jeopardizing our school systems, and then property taxes are going to have to go up. So don't quite make it out to be quite as how rosy as it sounds. As far as the Laughlin Furniture Home deal, the people of West Belleville wanted that blighted building under control. And they're worried about the front door to their west end coming up from East St. Louis, which is a tough neighborhood to border. I believe we did the right thing. The Ruler Food, that building at the old Bel Air Bowl has sat vacant for 6.5 years. We've tried. We've been unsuccessful getting anybody in there. The $200,000 to go for towards demolition and site preparation is going to bring increased property taxes, increased for the first time sales tax, and it's going to bring a newness to that intersection that I honestly believe will create some new synergy and create a new era along North Bell West. We've got to have a balance. You can't just do it with any one thing. We need parks and trails, and we need nursing homes and businesses, business retention. And the Chamber of Commerce has been working great with us on business retention. We need Lindenwood University that came to town. And you know, we were criticized. Chairman Kern and I were criticized when the council and Dorothy and us did the deal with Lindenwood. There was a lot of people repeatedly in the paper and in the sound of, oh, you should never gave that school away. Look at them. They've already reinvested $30 million in that school campus, and they just started. Folks, sometimes you got to take some risks, but we have a vision. Our administration has a vision for this city. And I couldn't agree with you more, sir. There's a lot of streets that need to be done, but we're going to get them, and we're getting them. I can give you a list. Like I said, I'm proud. We've done $50 million in infrastructure improvements. And the other thing we're up against right now that we've got to deal with, we're mandated by the EPA to do this first $44 million of sewer repairs. Had you given me the sign?
No, I wasn't timing.
Okay. I'm here and there, I'm thinking I'm way up there. Okay.
Okay, excuse me for not saying that right. I don't understand, I'm a transplant from Indiana. I don't understand why my daughter, who just moved here at 28th and 013, she has to pay money for your library.
No, they guys can answer. I can answer. It's a specific question.
It's a specific question about why.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and we're all going to
that
give you,
location
we're all going to
is-
give you the same answer.
Okay,
Yeah, she's out of the city, and we
but
have,
why, they pay taxes?
no, they don't pay taxes to Belleville, ma'am.
Their land
If they-
taxes
If they're
are?
not in the corporate city limits, the city of Belleville does not get any portion of the property tax. And on your property tax bill in the city limits of Belleville, there's about 1%, 1.5%, something like that goes to the library fund. That's what pays for the library for the most part, okay? And if you don't live in the corporate city limits and all of our people are paying that tax, then they decided years ago, long before me, that this isn't fair to people who live in the city to be paying for the tax and other people to be able to get a library card for the same expense. So they increase people's fees, they can still get a library card, it's just a higher rate if you don't live in the city limits, okay?
But my card's free and their card is $50?
Well, it is, if you don't live in the corporate city limits, there's a definite fee, yes there is.
Is that for life or per year?
It's per year.
I would encourage her to move into the city.
Just by 4 blocks?
We would love to annex her. We would love to annex her. And the boundaries are very jagged, they're in and out. It is confusing.
Can the kids who go to West High School, can they use the library?
They can certainly use the library, they can go study at the library. In fact, I would recommend that they go talk to the librarian. He's got a lot of programs that all the high school kids are welcome to. But once again, they have to still be true to the form as far as taking books out, etc., and taking the materials home. If they don't live in the corporate city limits, there are still some rules and regulations that the library board has set. And it's just because of the fact they got to go where their funding sources are.
But with all due respect, Mayor Curran, on my property taxes, Eckert.
That's okay, he's a friend.
Whoops.
Senior moments.
Mayor Eckert, I'm sorry. On my property taxes, and my relatives' property taxes, we all live in the same area. We are about 1.5 miles outside the city limits. I'm going back to this remark that the lady made about not being able to use Belleville Public Library. On the property taxes, there are 2 sections. One is for Belleville City Public Library. The other is for the West Branch Public Library. And there's an amount of money that is accrued for library service.
If you have that, we want to see that. Because
Okay.
if that's the case, but that's done by the St. Clair County Assessor's Office. So, I mean, if you got a unique situation, if you're honestly being taxed for the library and you live in a county, then by golly, we need to give you a library card. But something doesn't, no offense,
It's a
but
very
something's not right
strange
there.
zoning section because
Something's not right there.
1 mile down the road, there's city limits.
I know.
Across the street, there's city limits.
I mean, the
I live on
boundaries are hard to
Pratt Street,
understand.
which goes, you know, so it kind of.
Please contact me, I'd love to look at that.
Is there another, remember when you're sending your questions to the mayoral candidates, please phrase it in the form of a question. Timekeeper, you need to be watching that 3-minute time.
You watch 3 minutes.
Yes.
May I ask more than one question? Just one.
We'll come around
Okay.
as soon as everybody.
Then I'm going to ask the question, which is a foreign to me. Housing. I want to know if you are going to force the people living in housing on the occupancy permit to have a photo ID. Because where we live, we have one apartment house It is always full of crime in one of the apartments. I would like to see it shut down permanently, and I guess we can't do that because Section 8.
Okay, good questions.
All right. The question is, and tell me if I'm
Are you
wrong.
going to put into place that they are required a photo ID, so when you make a complaint and inspectors go to investigate it, these are the ones that need to be here. You don't want to hear that they're visiting, because we see visitation forever, and they can give you any kind of story they want.
Right, the question is, are you going to enforce occupancy with the new occupancy rules? How is housing going to address this, and how are you, as mayoral candidates, how are you going to make sure that it's enforced? Right,
Where do you want to go?
same order.
Same order. And you're doing a great job, Donna. I think what Donna's trying to get at, the Douglas Highland Neighborhood Association had a very good program set up. I think they were just asking for the questions to be something that all residents can ask, and it's to generalize and keep everything fair. So you did an eloquent job at that. Thank you. To answer your question, let's get right into the meat of it. We have a new crime-free housing ordinance that has been worked on for over a year now. It needed to be worked on years ago, like many other communities have had for years. We now have a crime-free housing ordinance that does have an occupancy permit that is required. It was batted back and forth a lot, okay? We had a lot of issues with it. Birth dates, birth certificates, children being notated the first year, and we now have a tool that is called a crime-free housing ordinance, just now in 2013, okay? So I do believe it is going to get better. It is going to get much better, but it has been needed for years is the problem. And we have had nothing to help the good landlords be good landlords. We've had nothing to help the bad landlords be a little bit more responsible. And that is a problem. It's just like any business. They're in the business of being rental property owners, and you have good business owners and you have bad business owners. This crime-free housing ordinance is going to take care of both. It's going to help the good landlords, because you can't tell me that every landlord in Belleville is bad, but you are experiencing what we have a huge problem with is the bad landlords.
Do I have a minute left?
Well, I think these two gentlemen probably get to go next. But the crime-free housing ordinance, I encourage you to come to a crime-free housing ordinance committee. It is a lengthy, but it is going to be very detailed. We're going to have officers, and all the Belleville police officers are going to be trained and certified in housing, the rules and regulations of the crime-free housing ordinance. It won't just be 3 or 4 housing people. It's going to be a team unified effort. And this has been drawn up from other communities that have all had this working very successful for years.
On the occupancy question, man, there's a couple facets to it. Just recently, the city of Belleville passed amendments to our current occupancy code. On that aspect, I voted against it. And I'll tell you why I voted against it. I was not going to give up what I feel are constitutional rights of people living within their home because of 10% of the people or less that are causing the problems that you specifically mentioned. We were also told at the time that this part of the occupancy code would be an integral part of the crime-free housing code, but yet that portion has not been brought to the city council as a whole to even analyze. What you're saying is a very serious problem. I'm sure the mayor, Alderman Elmore, and myself, we have dealt with it. But we got to deal with the specifics of the problem. As we discussed at Douglas School, you know, on South 10th Street, some of you may have even known them, the Orton family. They grew up in a house basically smaller than mine. Good Catholic family, 9 children. Never heard a peep out of them, never had a problem out of them. It's the areas where these people are moving in, and now becomes a disruption to the neighborhood that we need to address. And we already have state statutes that can address some of those issues, in addition to the crime-free housing ordinance that we are proposing to pass. And I totally support that. I was one of the first to put out what I call the Three Strikes You're Out program. You know, you have an issue there where they're causing disruption in the neighborhood, you know, all right, friendly warning, the second time fine, third time you're out. And that's where we need to do. We need to focus on those areas, and as Chief Clay has told us, basically 90% of these issues are coming from rental homes. And as Alderman Elmore said, we have a right, you know, renting a home, it is a business. We have a right to regulate it. And we need to move forward with that. It's not been completely brought to the table of all the aspects of it, but I do believe with a strong crime-free housing ordinance is going to, you know, basically let the people know and let the landlords know that if you're not going to police the people that are renting from you, that we are going to have police officers out there to arrest them. And eventually, as you go through the program, that landlord could find themselves not being able to rent the building, which I think is right.
Okay, your first question about occupancy. I am a firm supporter of the occupancy ordinance. It would be in a world that's, if we lived in Camelot, it'd be great, you'd say we didn't have to have it. But we don't. We live in a real world. And today, occupancy code is necessary, in my opinion. I supported it, I continue to support it, and it is part of the crime-free housing. Crime-free housing on March 21st, Thursday night, I guess it's 2 weeks from tonight. I think I got this correct. 2 weeks from tonight, 7 o'clock in the council chambers. I would encourage you to come. It'll be a public hearing on the crime-free housing, what I believe is the final draft of the ordinance. Your question about photo ID, I honestly don't think has come before them. I'd have to ask the city attorney. There's been some sticking points so far, but I think that's a good question. I think you should come and bring that question forward. It still can be amended, still can be talked about. I didn't sit in every lengthy meeting they had, but I don't know that topic never came to my desk for discussion. I'm telling you, I support the crime-free housing, multi-crime-free housing ordinance. I've read the draft. I've met with the police chief, the housing director, the city attorney. I think it's going to be a good tool. We've had a volunteer program up till now. It is going to afford us to be able to hire 1 more police officer immediately and put in housing. Hopefully, we'll be able to hire a second one not too far down the road. But we got to make sure how the revenues truly come in and not that they live up to our projections. We're also going to have to get a little bit of extra staff in the housing department because it's going to create more paperwork. Hopefully this new computer system will be all online, which will be the first time the housing and the police department will be much, much better interwoven and connected, and that'll be a much better way of tracking things as well. I can just tell you, we have some issues. Since I've been mayor, we put out, and I have totally supported and encouraged the chief of police to do special details in certain areas where we've had special challenges. Your area might be one of them. They're out there quite a bit. It does cost, because usually it's overtime, but we're going to continue to do that because I believe we've got to go after those who continue to disrupt things and really help the rest of us struggle with quality of life. But come to that meeting on the 21st. The ordinance has not been passed yet, but it's close.
Yeah, I have a question about the occupancy permit. You're not supposed to be living in a house without one. But yet, we have somebody in this neighborhood who is living in a house that is not habitable, and they have no permit. And I had called Housing Authority, who has no authority to remove them, and I've called the police, who also don't remove them. What can be done about that?
I would say after the meeting, give me some more specifics, and I'll talk to the police chief and to the city attorney to find out if they're aware of this particular situation. Now, understand, if somebody's lived in a home before the occupancy ordinance of 1988 went to effect.
Excuse me, it's not the case. We'll talk afterwards.
That's fine.
Going in the details. Phil, would you like to answer her question?
For clarity, your question is what to do next with the frustrated.
Right, well, nobody has authority to carry out that, but yet all of us have to pay for our occupancy permits.
The occupancy permit program is a good thing to have. It is not working for you right now and you're frustrated, and I am sorry. When you bring that to the city police, bring it to the housing officers, involve your alderman, involve the mayor's office. You shouldn't have to make that much noise. You really shouldn't have to, and it's very frustrating. A lot of people have experienced this problem before. When we talk about solutions, it's going to take, as I've said, teamwork. And I am going to be proposing a new city attorney. I've not made any bones about it because I feel like our city attorney does not have the full support of some administrative people. I'm not going to get into personalities here. I believe he has worked very hard, but my solution will be to start discussing city housing court. This is not where you come in and pay for a speeding ticket at City Hall. But with the crime-free housing, with the occupancy permit, and a tool of city housing court, where we actually hear housing problems in our city hall, and we are in charge of them, and we don't have to worry about can this be prosecuted at the county level. City housing court very well could be the answer. And it will be discussed, if I'm elected, that we will be looking at having a city housing court.
Ma'am, have you discussed the issue that you raised, have you discussed it with your, I assume you're in Ward 2, have you discussed it with your current alderman?
No, I thought that all you would have to do is call the police and the housing authority.
I agree with you. I agree with you. That is the that is the number one role, though, of an alderman is to serve as conduit for the citizens to the city government when you are not getting satisfaction, and you have one of your aldermen right in front of you, and you have your other one right there, and I've been in that situation. I don't know the particulars of it, but there's always going to be a potentiality of certain issues being raised that either didn't get to the right person. Things can fall through cracks. But I do know, and in fairness to everybody, some of those issues have been brought to me. I have brought them directly to the staff and even the mayor. I think that all of us up here would concur that our whole sole goal is to solve citizens' concerns. And I would believe that if you speak with your two aldermen tonight, I see no reason that they cannot be your liaison representative, sit down with the mayor and the staff, find out the particulars of what this issue is, and more than glad to get down to the brass tacks and get it solved for you. Because I do know that the staff that is there is there to try to serve and help. So that's the best answer I can give you, because that's how I've handled it with other similar cases.
Yeah, I would agree. Please talk to me afterwards. We'll be on it tomorrow. I've never had a conversation with you about this, I don't believe.
No, I thought I had gone.
Okay, and, you know, it should be solved, or at least should be explained, but let us find out, and I guarantee you we will. In answer in city court, I just want you to know, folks, we have looked at city court, and we'll look at it again. But we spent an extensive amount of time visiting other cities, researching city court, and at the time, a couple years ago, that we made a decision at the time, we didn't feel we were quite in a position where it was going to work for us, or that we could effectively, financially, make it work. And there's some different discussion points that could be a lengthier discussion, but I will tell you, we have researched it. We went and visited a number of other cities, like I said. Jennifer Gain, who was Director of Housing, Jennifer Meyer at that time for a number of years, led the charge with the police department and others, and we asked a lot of questions. Our attorneys at that time, for a lot of reasons they gave, felt we weren't quite in the position where it would be effective. We are going to look at it again. But I don't know that city court's going to solve all these individual problems. We're still dealing with people who don't want to follow the rules. And we've just got to be effective and go after them. I apologize for the problem you're apparently having, obviously. Let's see if we can't get together and zero in on exactly what it is and get to it. But I think that's the biggest frustration. I'm proud of the staff we have. I wholeheartedly, respectfully disagree with Mr. Elmore. Mike Flynn, who's our city attorney, has been the assistant city attorney and now city attorney for 35 years with the city of Belleville. He is an expert in municipal law. You need somebody in municipal law when you're a city of our size with the challenges we do face when you go to that courthouse to deal with the judges. You don't want a novice. You don't want somebody who has no city experience because you will get nothing accomplished. And I can tell you, Mr. Flynn is a very fair individual who's extremely intelligent and who represents Belleville well. So I feel very compelled to say that. I believe, once again, this administration's made good choices. We have a great police chief. We have a great housing director who happens now to be a retired police officer, a retired police lieutenant. We have good people who care about this city. And I'm proud of our staff. And I think, you know, if you haven't had a chance to work with some of them, we'll connect you up, and I think you'll be also just as pleased.
Thank you very much. My children have a question, and subsequent to that, if time allows, I would like to ask an intended question. My children's question is, they said, vote for the mayor who will serve the poor people, the homeless, the jobless people, people of all races equally. Vote for a level playing field. I pose this question on behalf of my kids to the mayoral candidates. How will my kids fit into this current administration when I think we only have African Americans in one like city, approximately 20 to 30 African Americans. When we have a population here of 30% African Americans now. So my question again, I'll reiterate. Who would be the best mayor to represent all the people? And what would you all do as far as the homeless, because the Salvation Army is going, how to best serve the poor people, and try to ascertain some jobs for all people? Question.
Mr. Griffin has brought this issue and point up several times. I appreciate the kids being involved. That's fantastic. Let me tell you that equality, no disrespect, I've said this to you before, is not just the African American. Women, Asian, German, I don't care what race the person is. If they're qualified for the job, if we have the ability to make the hire for the job, they will get the job, and they will get a fair shot just like every other race, sex, or whatever. I don't know if the people, am I supposed to be reading this?
No.
So I would just encourage this equality question to keep coming up. But remember, it's not just one race, it's not just one sex, it's not just, you know, it's about whoever is most qualified for the job. First, we have to have the ability to make the hire, and then most qualified. To answer your question fairly enough?
Thank you.
Yeah, Lee, we've talked about this before. As I mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, at the Douglas School, I've seen what unfairness and inequality can do to the city of Belleville, because I had served as a city council that had to fix the problems of the previous administration that was doing basically what your concerns were. We were sued by the United States of America, the city of Belleville, for that very issue. We had to work through it, we had to solve it, and we fixed it. And as I told people at Douglas School, as I'll tell you folks here tonight, I was there when Chief Clay was the first black officer to ever be hired by the city of Belleville. I was there and was proud to watch him get sworn in. And we had worked during that time frame as well as first female officers and et cetera. As mayor, I do believe that it was the mayor's obligation to ensure that you have a totally independent HR personnel office. And that office should be hiring completely separate, following complete equal opportunity laws. And the city of Belleville has close to a 30% population, and children. And I believe as long as we've got the safe standards in, that's what we're going to do, and work on hiring the best, and we have people applying, that the percentages, in my mind, should pretty much ultimately work out to get that proper representation. And as mayor of Belleville, I will demand that the personnel office be completely autonomous. I can assure you that as mayor, I will have no influence over hiring. I don't want to have nothing to do with it, and it will be done strictly by the EEOC standards, with hiring the best, the most qualified. And I believe if we stick to those standards, you're going to see the proper representation that you're looking for.
Lee, I appreciate your question of your children that you read. You may or may not know, some of you in the room do, but in 1992 I was proud to be a part of starting the Franklin Neighborhood Association, which really encompasses this area. And Barry McHugh sitting here and I and many worked with some of the lowest income families of all race, and that program still goes on today. And I served 4 years as the executive director of that program in this neighborhood, working with all children, no matter their color. Lee, if you look at our party, the Good Government Party, we have an African American on our ticket. We have women on our ticket. We have seniors on our ticket. We have the most diverse ticket of anyone. I agree with you. Since I've been on this council, we have formed the first, and in some cases maybe the only, Human Relations Commission. And as I told you before, while it's true Joe was on the council when Chief Clay was first hired, but I appointed Chief Clay as the first African American police chief. Now, the council ratified it, but it was my decision to appoint him. We have a number of outstanding men and women of all colors on our departments. I've had this conversation with you before. Jim Schneider is our HR director. Jim Schneider does a fabulous job. He is well trained. He has a master's in counseling. He is works with the unions and works with all people and follows the rules set forth. The problem is, and we are advertising by all the standards the Justice Department set down back in the 90s, sometimes people don't always seek the jobs. And we are going to hire the most qualified. We're not going to hire based on color. We're going to hire the most qualified. Now, I would agree with you. If you can help us better advertise jobs that come up, we want to talk to you. Because we want the most qualified, and I can tell you in the city of Belleville, under this administration, we're not discriminating. We're not at all. And we'll continue to be extremely fair. I'm proud of the fact that I was recognized by the NAACP and the Racial Harmony community in the last several years since I've been mayor for the fairness and for the service that I've worked with those organizations and what this city has worked with. And I'm proud of that. And I think they don't just hand those recognitions out just because. They recognize that Belleville has come a long way.
I have time for just one more question from the Pleasant Hill area. Did you live here?
Mr. Mayor, would you just try to do more for this area? I'm asking you, I'm sorry, or whatever mayor may become, would we try to do more here? I think this, our particular area has been not represented well, not. I just think we've been disregarded.
Anybody else?
My question's about money. When Belleville receives its annual audit report, it comes with an approximately 2-page letter. About half a dozen times within that 2-page letter, it says the city of Belleville does not follow standard accounting practices within the United States. Alderman Hayden correctly pointed out that very few elected officials have anything to do with setting budget priorities within the city of Belleville. I would point you to the people of the city of Dixon who had a very trusted treasurer who completely betrayed them. And although I do not think in any way that we have that going on at City Hall, it would simply be good business practices to have someone come in and give us a full picture. So this is my question. If elected mayor, would you support and fund a forensic audit?
Our audit that is done by C.J. Slosser on an annual basis is thorough. The forensic audit would be fantastic. I would love to see a forensic audit. It has to be affordable, as just about everything we do. But we can never double check our audits enough. We have a $27 million budget coming up this week that we're going to be discussing. There will be an audit by an auditing firm that will do the audit. The forensic audit that I think Alderman Holt is talking about is to double check, if I'm correct, if I understand your question, is to double check what we're doing to make sure that we're getting our priorities met. My priority, as I said when we started this an hour ago, will be under funding is to hire more police. Under TIF will be to work on infrastructure. So there will be priorities. We have issues with technology that we are spending a lot of money on by not using technology. Now, a lot of people will tell you technology costs, technology costs, technology costs. Technology saves. Technology will make the city run more effective, more efficiently, and it will help us even with the forensic audit process that you're talking about. It'll provide more checks and balances. The auditing that we're doing is great, but a forensic audit would be even better.
Part of my platform statement, Alderman Holt, as elected mayor, to me, it is an absolute mandatory requirement in order to take office, start fresh books and a clear picture of what is going on in the city of Belleville's finances. We have bonds at 9%. We have bonds that have taken us out to 30, 40 years. I've had individuals look at it, and it tells us right now, ladies and gentlemen, to pay the debt that the city of Belleville has, each person in this building that lives in the city of Belleville, women and children, would have to come up with $5,000 to come up and pay the debt that the city of Belleville has accumulated. And that is one of the concerns that I raised from the beginning. We can't keep spending when we don't have money that's going to be coming in to the appropriate general fund to provide services. We're not going to be able to continue on that path to provide general services if we do. And the people need to understand, when you say forensic audit, people look at it as if it connotates a criminal term or criminal language. It is not seeking anybody to do anything wrong or do anything necessarily breaking the law. It is, ladies and gentlemen, a more, in layman terms, deep-seated, in-depth audit of exactly what is going on in our finances that can be held up in the basis of, and recognized in the basis of the court of law as a true and factual picture of what is happening in the city of Belleville. And to me, a new mayor would require that regardless of the situation, just so they can have a clean slate of exactly what's going on in the city of Belleville's finances. And that is, to me, this whole, the only way that we're going to be able to then sit down and plan and prioritize through budget workshops and say, okay, we got a lot of things we need to do, but our first priority, ladies and gentlemen, is to protect and serve the people, and that starts with crime, and where and how can we find the money to do that. And a forensic audit, in my mind, would be the first task in getting that done. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, years ago, council did get more involved in budget. But that was before we had a professional finance director. Under my term as mayor, last 8 years, I replaced an outstanding finance director who retired with a certified public accountant with an MBA. We have a CPA who reviews everything, and then we have an auditing firm that comes in and checks our CPA. We're very much above board. We're not doing anything wrong, but we welcome any and all, but as Mr. Elmore said, audit on top of audit on top of audits are expensive. Now, the tough thing has been the money is getting tighter. The last 4 years, I don't think I'm telling anybody anything, we've been in a recession. State government and federal government is in a world of hurt. State government's a mess. Again, today we get news that there may be more cuts. To say that we're not checking things or to allude to that is not true. Our party and this administration sees the importance of keeping the treasurer's office as it is, as the law in our city says, for checks and balances. Mr. Turner oversees $10 million of collections in sewer revenue, trash revenue, and other revenues every year. My two opponents both want to either look at, study, or get rid of the treasurer's position or cut it in half, and that would diminish the checks and balances. We're not asking for that. We know Mr. Turner's position and his credibility, and we know we need those checks and balances. We know that Jamie Matrid is a certified public accountant already with an MBA who is doing an outstanding job, who did, before she came to us, audit municipal businesses, municipalities. Much experience. The auditing firm we have has given us great reviews. We went through 3 bond ratings since I've been mayor. We received an A+ every time. And the bonds that Mr. Hayden's talking about, the 9-some%, that's on one of the shopping centers that it's not our bonds. We didn't invest that money. It's part of a shopping center development agreement, and that's not, we have refinanced and saved the city of Belleville hundreds of thousands of dollars under my administration. So let's set the record correct.
I hate to say this, but unfortunately, we've gone over time. It's time for closing right now. Candidates will go in the same order. You'll get 3 minutes to give your closing remarks.
We covered a lot of great topics tonight. Thank you for bringing forth those questions. Those are some really good questions. I'm going to continue on with what my platform is that I have not been able to touch on. We've all come to an agreement that crime is our #1 priority. The people in the neighborhoods know that crime is the #1 priority. We know that crime is the #1 priority. We have not had enough police officers hired in the last 10 years to feel safe. And I have learned things from Mayor Eckert, but I'm also going to, when I think about what he said the other night at Douglas, if you're trying to learn what they're going to do, look at what they've already done. And I have an issue with what we have not already done, which is hire more police. Do you feel safer right now living in the county that has the most crime per capita practically in the country? Do you feel safer today than you did 10 years ago? So go home and ask yourself that question, if you feel safer. He's also told us that if you don't feel safe, you'll never grow your community. So I ask you, do you feel safe? I know I don't let my kids walk down the street like I used to, but it is a different time. Let's be realistic. This is a different generation. And a different generation requires the priorities laid out to hire more police officers. To just throw up our hands and say we just don't have the money is not the answer. If we have to go into a surveillance camera discussion, if we have to go into reprioritizing our funds to get more police officers, that's what we have to do. We have to do it. Everything revolves around crime. We have in Belleville right now 592 homes for sale. We have in Belleville right now 23 commercial properties for sale. Why is everybody moving out? We have a great community here. People don't feel safe. If they don't feel safe, they won't come shopping here. If they don't feel safe, they won't buy the houses that we want them to buy. Crime will also reflect on our schools. It will reflect on everything. Okay? So, that is the last part I have to say about crime. TIF. We talked about TIF a little bit tonight. Again, my priority will be the streets. Now I'm going to touch on something that we haven't talked about, and that is transparency. Not just transparency with you folks, because that is important, and I believe with the new city website, which partially I was a part of saying we need to have a city website to bring more transparency to the people. What about transparency with the aldermen? What about transparency with the way we do business? In the last 5 years ago, we bought another park. I love parks. I was on the Long Range Park Planning Committee. I was at the table when we discussed we need more park space. The previous mayor, Mayor Kern, was proposed to buy a park. He said, I wouldn't buy that park. It's a money pit. I do not want this park. Mayor Eckert came in, bought the park for $1 million. Wouldn't you think that first off, the park board and the park's administration wouldn't have to hear about this park purchase by opening up the paper? That's the transparency that I'm talking about. If one person is just making all the decisions without teamwork, it's only going to hurt Belleville. I remind you, once again, ladies and gentlemen, please, please go to the polls and vote. Please, vote for me. I am going to lead the city the way it needs to be led, with teamwork, cooperation, and by listening. At times, you know you have not been listened to. I know as an alderman, I haven't been listened to. So please remember to vote. We have 29,000 registered voters in Belleville. We need more than 13% people voting, and that's what we had the last time we had a mayoral election. So please go tell your friends to vote. Tell them Phil Elmore is going to lead the city where we need to go. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing you at Lindenwood on the 26th. Thanks.
First, you brought up transparency, Phil. I would like to, ladies and gentlemen, thank once again Mr. Bob White in the back, who is filming this for the rest of the people in the city that could not be here this evening to watch this. He filmed the one in Douglas. He films every city council meeting for the past year. We try to recognize that even the mayor, who has stated that we can't put a link to his videos because we don't know if they're going to be true to form or whatever word he used, has provided a link to through his GGP site. So I find that quite interesting. What you've heard tonight, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, is a tale of two cities. And one tale is everything's good and rosy, stick to the plan, and everything's going to work out fine. The other is being straightforward and honest with you, and that is everything is not rosy. As Mr. Elmore has pointed out, one police officer has been added since he has taken over as an alderman and now as 8 years as mayor. He has pointed out recently that he wants to, as we pointed out, some of the issues and concerns we have of overview of the TIFs and economic programs that are going on, or I should say almost zero overview, that he's proposing that we add somebody in the economic development department. I don't disagree that may not be a need, but if it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, we can hire only one person only, Joe Hayden is going to be supporting a police officer on the street. This election comes down to a simple proposition. If you're happy with the status quo, then by all means, I suggest you vote for Mr. Eck. As a matter of fact, no offense, Phil, but I would suggest you vote for Mr. Elmore, because for the past 3 years and 9 months, Phil, you basically have voted with him on every single major issue until this past few months. Neither of you have taken crime seriously, and you didn't put your flyer out, Mayor, until you scrambled after the B&D told people that people that the B&D went to said this is the #1 issue. If you're not happy with the status quo, ladies and gentlemen, then I strongly and seriously ask that you look at me. The mayor has stated earlier and touted this very appropriate so. Jamie Maitre with her CPA and MBA. I have a master's degree in public administration, bachelor's degree in government, and 20 years of government experience. I've lived in this city my entire life, and I have a vested interest in it as you do. I'm here to bring my education and experience and change the status quo, with crime being the #1 issue, and regardless of what the mayor wants to state about tips, tips do need to be reformed. They need to be quit being abused. We need to start spending them in the right direction instead of, again, buying furniture stores at the end of the building. You talked about the West End Police Branch, Mayor. We have the technology and ability in today's age, ladies and gentlemen, that we can allow for communications of dispatchers and telecommunicators. It doesn't matter where they answer the phone. They can answer it at City Hall. They can answer it down at the West End Police Branch and provide the services. That immediately gives us 24/7 presence in that building. Then we have to get a new modern, probably holding cell in that thing, because the old one's probably outdated. But then when these officers out here, if they're patrolling on West Main at 80th and West Main, don't have to drive, and if we all drove it, we know it's a very long trip from 80th and Main downtown. No, they can take them right into that West End Police Branch, lock them up, get back out on the street, and go back and start looking for more bad guys. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to be smart about it. And you say, well, Joe, that's just on the West End, though. Every time that police officer leaves that West End, an officer in this area or the mid area has to potentially respond to those calls. And we've got to do better. We have to do better, and we can do better. And if Joe Ade is elected mayor on April 9th, we will do better. We will make this town safe, and we will begin to prosper. We will start to see people moving in, people wanting to invest in the city, which also helps our local businesses, and that's how we grow our community. And that's the other tale to the story. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you can please leave your comments to the end to talk amongst yourselves, I greatly appreciate it. You're taking time away from the candidates' final statements. So please be respectful.
Well, I too want to thank Pleasant Hill Neighborhood Association for hosting us tonight. I want to thank Dr. Tinge for opening the doors of Christ Church. They're a great partner in the neighborhood, been here for many, many years. And we appreciate their doors welcoming us as well. I want to clarify a few things. Mr. Hayden has repeatedly, in literature, etc., stated he will restaff the West End Police Station. Former Police Chief Terry Delaney and Chief William Clay both emphatically have said and continue to say it is a waste of manpower. We put 6 officers back on the street when we closed the West End branch, and you cannot lock up a prisoner and walk away. It's against the law. So that is a misstatement. It's misinformation. Now, yes, it is. Well, you got a couple policemen over here shaking their head, but I'm not putting them on the spot. Now, transparency, we got all the catchphrases, folks. First year Phil was alderman, he'd come to my office every day. Seemed like he was there. Ever since he decided to run for mayor, he doesn't want to talk and ask questions. We want to go to the newspaper. We want to go to a meeting and stand up. If we're really interested in working, we got to work with people. We got to work with the person who's elected. If whoever's elected here, everybody's got to work with them. I can tell you, the last year or two, it has not been the case with these 2 persons who are running against me. They have agendas. We fire out emails all hours of the day and night. We question a ton of things to the staff and burden the staff when we could be communicating and having good dialogue and solving a lot of this. Folks, we got some serious problems, and I hope when you go to the polls on April 9th, you look at leadership. For the last 8 years, I have led the 400+ employees, the 9 unions, and I have been fair. Not everybody's going to like the decisions of the mayor, but I can tell you I'm proud of the department heads I picked. I'm proud, if you look at our staff, I'm proud of the committees we picked and selected and asked for appointment and approval. We have good people. We have a caring city. It's not all doom and gloom. Do we have crime? Yes. We have a fabulous police force. They solve almost everything. I would love to give them all. I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we're one of the few cities that didn't cut policemen since 2009. I'm proud of that. Plus, we put 6 more back on the street by closing the West End station. And we've hired 1. So while my opponents want to be critical of how much we haven't done, we've done a lot considering this recession. This is the worst recession since the Great Depression. And we have continued to A+ bond rating. We are in the black. I don't care what kind of gloom and doom they want to preach. Now, could things go awry quickly? Just stay tuned and watch the economy. Gas prices jump every other day. Folks, I believe we've made progress. Can I promise you a Pollyanna answer to everything? No. But I can tell you I am wanting to be your mayor for another term, to continue to give leadership and continue to make improvements. When you vote on April 9th, look at downtown Belleville and tell me what you think compared to what it was 10 years ago. Look at Lindenwood University when Belleville West built a new school. Look what we'd be like if we didn't have these 3 car dealerships that I've received criticism from some in this room. And it's unbelievable revenue that we're going to make for years to come. Look at the 2 shopping centers. Look at the All-America City, the new firehouse, the lower ISO rating. We started under this administration the newsletter that goes out quarterly to all of you and talk to you more about what's going on in the city. We've done a lot and there's a lot more to do. I'm proud of this administration. I love this city. I'm compassionate about what we're doing, and I do need your vote to continue to do the good things for Belleville on April 9th.
We're going to take a 10-minute intermission. If you did not get a chance to ask the candidates a question, this will be your opportunity to talk one-on-one with them. And I apologize, but we just ran out of time. Yes?
Can I just ask a quick question? If somebody wants to get a hold of their alderman, how do they get a phone number? How do they get if somebody needs help?
I am so glad you asked that. That information is on the City of Belleville's website. Their name is there, their telephone number is there, and the alderman, you can leave a message. If you get an answer back, that's, it all depends on how busy they are. But, they will eventually get back with you. But that information is on the Google website. If you don't have a computer, I will put out.
Just call City Hall.
Yes, you can call City Hall. I'm going to put out the information, and I'm going to put on the website where you can get that link for the people who are working nights, because Pleasant Hill is a unique animal. People here work shifts, and I want to thank those individuals who are taking the time out of their busy lives to be here tonight. But we have a lot of shift workers, and this will help out immensely. Thank you.
If I wants my cell phone, I'll give it to you.